Decatur City Council and Local Contract Review Board meeting to order. City Recorder Kreger, please call the roll.
Council President Greathouse. Here. Councilor Ruto. Here. Councilor Loeb. Here. Councilor Anderson. Mayor Snyder.
Here.
Youth Councilor Turley. Here.
All right, all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, staff or council, do we have any non-agenda items?
Staff have none, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Let's move on to public comment. Is there any follow-up to previous public comment, City Manager Wine?
No follow-up, Mr. Mayor.
All right, and we have, we'll move on to public communication, and we have one individual who signed up. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? I have Mr. John Charles. Please come on up. Turn the microphone on and state your name for the record. Good to see you. Thank you for coming.
Okay, now we're on. Thank you for your time. My name is John Charles. I've been a Tiger homeowner since 2004. And I'm also a long-time observer of TriMet. And I'm just here to make a brief comment about the project you've been engaged in since 2011, the Tiger Pittsburgh Village project. In your due diligence on this project, you just need to be aware that just because TriMet agrees to something, it's going to happen. I followed the yellow line very carefully back in the day. It opened in May 2004 when TriMet signed the full funding grant agreement with the Federal Transit Administration, which is central to all of their projects. They don't move forward without the federal money. It committed to 6 trains at the peak hours in 2004, increasing to 8 in 2020. We're now in 2020. So how did things work out for North Portland residents? Well, in fact, on one day, the 6 trains at the peak hour were provided. And then it dropped down to 4. It's been 4 for over a decade. As of January 9, they were obligated in their full funding contract to double that to 8 trains per hour at the peak. Well, you can check your smartphones if you want. That's not happening. 50% below their legal promise. Has the failure been to a lack of funding? No. Both in 2003 and 2009, TriMet went to the legislature successfully, requested an increase in their payroll tax rate, specifically for the purpose of fulfilling their full funding grant agreement obligations. That's what Fred Hansen said. I was there. George Pascal, the board chair, said the same thing. All the money will go to increase service. Didn't happen. Between 1998 and 2018, TriMet payroll tax revenue went up 64%. Passenger fare revenue went up 116%. TriMet simply has not kept its promise to those who use the Yellow Max line. Travel time. TriMet promised a 24-minute ride, end to end, one way. What is it today? Actual 35 minutes. A 46% time penalty. Think about it. How is that kind of matter even possible? They have the unrestricted right-of-way. According to the literature for the project you're considering, this is supposed to be a congestion-proof project. 46 minutes, 46% underperformance. Good morning. The yellow line runs through House Speaker Tina Kotek's district. TriMet is budgeting $150 million of state funding for your project. The first $27.5 million was put in the governor's budget back in December 2018. It was taken out by the legislature in 2019 by the Ways and Means Committee that the Speaker sits on. TriMet is still budgeting $150 million in state funding. So far, they've received 0. So the publicly stated funding deficit of somewhere around 90 million, the last I heard when I was here, the steering committee meeting, is not actually 90 million. In my estimation, it's $240 million. Overpromising and underperforming by TriMet has also occurred on the green line, the orange line, and less. This is not an accident, it's a pattern. So before you sign the dotted line for this, you need to ask yourself, what remedy will your successors on this council have in 2030 or 2035 if the project underperforms as seriously as the yellow line underperforms today, 15 years after the fact? Because if you can't think of an actual remedy, real leverage, then really, why should you agree to do this? If you don't have any leverage, these are just promises. So keep that in mind.
Thank you very much. All right. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak during public comment? So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is used for routine items such as approval of minutes, receipt of council meeting calendars, proclamations, appointments to boards and committees, and approval of contracts or intergovernmental agreements with partner agencies. Detailed information on each item is available on the city's website and in the packet for this meeting. Approval may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Anyone may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is a legislative public hearing, consider Development Code Amendment DCA 2011-0002 Omnibus Code Package. I'm going to open the public hearing. Hearing procedures, anyone that wishes to offer testimony will be allowed to do so. There was a sign-up sheet at the back of the room. It's now in my hands. If you do want to speak, you will be allowed to do so. Associate Planner Andor, staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Agnes Lunder. I'm an associate planner. Tonight's hearing is on the 2019 Omnibus Code Amendment Package. So just to give you a little background, as you know, the last couple of weeks we have done some major reworking of our development code. The first one was doing a reorganization back in 2017. Followed by major housing updates to process and procedures, and then the most recent one was the downtown plan district. Through implementation of these changes, we have identified minor deficiencies in our code that we would like to address. In addition to those that are identified with implementation, the staff also has a running inventory of needed code amendments that we keep, and whenever an omnibus code package comes up, we try to include some of them in those packages. So the purpose of these amendments tonight is to not only address the deficiencies through implementation, but also some of the items from that inventory. And the purpose of tonight's hearing is to adopt the 2009 Omnibus Code Amendment Package as it was recommended by Planning Commission. So I just wanted to point out a couple of the items that are included in the package tonight. The first one is related to housing, and as you know, with all of the housing changes that we've had been making with all the state regulations, we're almost in full compliance with those requirements, with the exception of removing the parking requirements from ADUs, as well as allowing the missing middle housing in all zones that allow single detached houses. So once we adopt these, we'll be in full compliance with state regulations. And then the resulted from basically applying the code was regarding the rectilinear standard. And that was basically, it applied to all lots that were within the city that were modified or created. Staff is proposing to revise that so that the standard only applies to quads, row houses, and single detached houses. Through application of this, we realize that the standard really doesn't work very well for like large development, apartment developments, or even non-residential lots because they vary in size and shape, and it just doesn't work very well for those instances. And then an example of something that was off of our code inventory was we updated our definition of story because it was in conflict with itself, and so we are making it consistent with the building code. And then minor housekeeping items would be correcting references and updating phrases and terminology. There is a more detailed summary of what the changes are chapter by chapter within the staff report. And then I wanted to address Mr. Rohde's comments that came in earlier today. The first and second ones are really related to the residential use category. So the first one, Mr. Rohde lists all these different types of care facilities, and I think the way that our proposal is written, it does address these types of facilities. If you keep reading under the characteristics, it speaks to residential uses that may include any combination of care, training, and treatment. We don't feel that it's necessary to list specific examples in there. The way that it's proposed, it kind of catches all of those things. Same with the next section regarding 1860.040C. Again, the examples section isn't really meant to be a comprehensive list of everything. That's why we didn't include everything. And then the last three, which is in chapter 18.810, 18.820, and 18.830. I believe this is actually regarding the rectilinear standard, and so this would not apply to existing lots. These standards would apply to lots that are being created or modified. So with that, staff recommendation would be for City Council to adopt the 2019 Omnibus Code Amendment Package as recommended by Planning Commission. This concludes staff's presentation.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to public testimony. No one has signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak at this legislative public hearing? All right, I see none. I assume there's no response to testimony from staff. Is there, I guess I should double check since there was written testimony, is there any other staff feedback? No. Okay, or response, I should say. All right, I'll close the public hearing. Council discussion and consideration. Councilor Newton?
I just wanted to make a comment. I think it's wise to remove a lot of the examples because I know when I was a planner, use types change and you get some sort of a new use type and it's not listed, and if the definition is expansive enough, you can cover things. So I think it's a good idea to try to have the definition be all-encompassing and not try to list specific examples.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, or a motion?
Just a comment, I was there at the Planning Commission meeting. They had a long, robust discussion about these, so they covered everything. And this is just a nice summary of it. So I move to approve ordinance number 20-01.
I'll second that. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the ordinance.
Ordinance number 20-01, an ordinance amending the Community Development Code of the City of Tigard for the purpose of adopting the 2019 Omnibus Code Amendment Package, DCA 2019-00002.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councilor Newton.
Yes.
Councilor Lube.
Yes.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Okay, ordinance number 20-01 is adopted unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work, lots of work. All right, next item on the agenda is a legislative public hearing considering an ordinance amending Tigard Municipal Code Section 3.24.080 to allow for deferral of certain system development charges. I am going to open this public hearing. Anyone that wants to offer testimony may do so. There was a sign-up sheet at the back of the room. It's now in my hands. If anyone wants to speak, they will be allowed to do so. Staff report, Mr. Van Domelen.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, good evening. So, you know, it's not been a problem with the price of housing. We know that in this area. Community development has been looking for ways to reduce the cost of housing any way that we can that would be as equitable as possible. This proposal is to allow builders to defer paying their system development charges for local Tigard-only system development charges until occupancy. There is no change in the amount that would be paid. It would be based on the application date for the building permit, but rather than pay them and carry the cost of the loans through the construction process, they would be able to defer that until they are ready for a final inspection. And that's pretty much what we're talking about on this particular ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. We're going to move to public testimony. I don't have anybody signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify? Okay. Some written testimony on this, correct? And I guess the reason I'm asking is there's a question about the notice on some of this. City Attorney?
The notice that's required for this type of ordinance is the same as any other public hearing. There's no special requirement. Posting the agenda was sufficient.
Okay, that was done timely?
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. Nobody has signed up to testify or indicated they want to. I will close the public hearing. Council discussion and consideration of ordinance 20-02. Councilor Holman. Question?
So this is highlighted that we're going to be making some adjustments to the software, $1,200, which is a lot of money. And an issue in the performance of it is to have done or some other suggestions made for Nathan and Sella. I'm assuming we're going to look at those separately, and it isn't appropriate, if you will, or efficient to do those now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, with this is a specific scripting that has to be written in order to allow the system to ignore fees that have been put in the system.
Oh, okay.
And it'll allow inspections to take place and those types of things to happen right up until a final inspection. And that takes, right now the system won't allow you to schedule inspections when there's fees due.
Okay.
And so, or issue a permit even. So this would allow you to.
So just realize that trigger
And then it would automatically notify the applicant of that fees were due at the time they scheduled the final inspection and wouldn't allow them to schedule that inspection until the fees have been
Okay.
paid, and then they would be able to go in and pay those online or come in and pay the fees, the SDCs that are due, and then be able to schedule their final inspection.
Issues that we're looking at down the road are more complicated.
They are more
Okay.
complicated. The land use case isn't currently tied to the building permit cases, and going off of a land use case scenario would be inconsistent with other state fee methodology right now. It would also actually cost the city money if there was a fee increase during the time when they're being deferred or vested, and it is much more difficult for staff to track those and get the right fees in there. So we will look at it further, but at this point, we chose to do the low-hanging fruit, if you would.
Thank you.
Council President Gross?
Just going to comment that this is a great way to, like you said, for a better way to maybe lessen the burden a little bit on builders and the cost of homes. So I think this is a great step forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Anderson?
So the risk to this is that a builder would start a project and will not finish it, and at the end of the project, we don't get our fees. I don't know what the percentage of that is. Of course.
It was. I don't see a high risk in that, because if that developer goes out of business or something, somebody else has to come and finish that. They still need a certificate of occupancy to occupy the building, and those fees would be due prior to the, so yes, it could delay it for a period of time if the property sat vacant or not, the development didn't continue, but whoever bought that property would be responsible for paying those system development charges before they got a final inspection. So it may push it down the road further, but it still wouldn't cause the fees not to be paid when the project was finished.
Or if you take it to an extreme, if it was not completed, it never have the impact on the system.
Correct.
True. Yeah, very good, thank you. Other questions or comments?
We do approve resolution 20-01.
I think that's the, above it.
I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? City Recorder, please read the number and title of the ordinance.
Ordinance number 20-02, an ordinance amending Tiger Municipal Code Section 3.24.080 to allow for deferral of certain system development charges.
City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Council President Whitehouse?
Yes.
Councilor Ante? Yes. Councilor White? Yes. Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Snyder?
Yes. Okay, ordinance number 20-02 is adopted unanimously.
Thank you.
This goes back to open. That's the difference between a resolution and an ordinance. Okay, moving on to item number 6, public hearing, consideration of the master fees and charges schedule for residential parking fees. I will open the public hearing. We have one hand tonight. Both sides just sign up sheet at the back of the line. Nobody signed up yet. Commissioner McDonald, staff report.
Mayor, members of council, my name is Jamie McDonald. I'm with the police department. I'm here this evening to request council consider approval of a new fee for residential parking zones. In December, when I was here, we approved a new chapter to replace the previous code addressing the residential parking zones. The previous resolution from 1991, which was established with the residential parking zones, at that time, established a $10 fee for the permits. That fee is no longer enough to cover the city's cost of processing permits. The staff is recommending an annual fee of $60 for the first 2 permits, $60 for each additional permit beyond that. With those first 2 permits, each address would also be afforded the opportunity for 2 free guest passes when they purchase the first 2. Staff recommends council adopt a resolution to establish a new fee for residential parking zones and place associated fees on the master fees and charges schedule.
Thank you. All right, you don't have any response to testimony. I will close the public hearing. Council discussion and consideration of resolution number 20-01. Councilor Lee?
Yeah, it's very similar to what other communities in the region are doing, and that's why we landed on that. We also evaluated what the expected time of the expected staff time is to process the permits, and that's really where we landed on what the cost would be. Trying to keep it comparable to what other communities have, and also something that probably won't cover the entire staff time, but will make it more reasonable than the 1991 $10 fee.
So service recovery.
At least a portion of it, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilor Eden?
Just to clarify, Commander, so if you want an additional pass at permit at $60, so you get two for $60, which is 30 apiece, and then 60. Could you explain why one would be 60 instead of 30?
Yes.
Was that a deterrent or what? You know?
Yes, there's a few reasons for that. First, in our research, we found that most residences will likely only need to, typically, and the only need for a permit is if they're parking on the street. So if they're parking in their driveway, they're required to have a permit. So, and also in having $60 for each additional parking permit, what we found in our research is that it's likely to help curb abuse. And because of where our zones are currently located and likely to be located at any time in the future, this we feel is a good deterrent to any abuse of the parking zones.
You want people to think about having more extras and more because that's taking up street.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Councilor Anderson?
So the new ordinance or the new code that was passed in December will take effective, or will be effective February 1st. So this would go into effect February 1st with the new changes to the code.
All right, is there a motion?
Resolution number 20-01.
I'll second that. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Senator Clerk, please read the name and title of the resolution.
Schedule to establish a fee for residential parking permits.
All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 7, which is a local contract review board. Consider resolution revising the city's public contractor rules. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Finance and Information Services Director, and now I have the pleasure of introducing you to Tiger's new contracting and purchasing manager, Christine Moody. This is a role that was previously filled by Joe Barrett before he moved on to the Public Works Business Manager. So you know how frequently you saw you'll get to see a lot of Christine in the coming future. She comes to us with over 25 years of local government contracting experience in the state of Oregon. She's also a past president of the Oregon Public Purchasing Association. So I feel very fortunate that I get to work with somebody with Christine's background and knowledge, and I feel confident that she will continue to provide the City of Tigard with exemplary contracting assistance. So with that, I'll pass on the next presentation to Christine.
Thank you, Cody. Good evening, Mayor Schneider and City Council. I am here tonight asking for your approval to update the city's public contracting rules as a result of the 2019 legislative session. You have in your packet the rundown version of the rules and the proceed, and only process when the city must now update its own public contracting rules. An important change in the 2019 revisions are the ability for the city to consider cost in the QBS for qualified bid selection for architects, engineers, and surveyors, photometric mapping, and transportation planners. We are now going to ask for pricing proposals from the top 3 ranked consultants. The QBS revisions have been on the city's legislative agenda for the past 3 years, and although this is a step in the right direction, it does add an extra phase to the process. The extra phase most likely will add an additional 2 to 3 weeks to the RFP evaluation and contract selection. The goal is that allowing pricing proposals to be reviewed and scored provides transparency to project costs and removes barriers for engineering staff when negotiating contracts. Other significant adjustments to the rules are increasing the intermediate procurement dollar threshold from $100,000 to $150,000, retaining job construction projects over $500,000 must be kept in interest-bearing accounts. Least cost analysis for public improvements over $200,000, improving the process for small and intermediate contract amendments, and a consistent public notice process allowing flexibility for electronic advertisements. In addition to putting the rules in place with OIS, there are some minor adjustments like allowing for electronic transmissions that will streamline the city's purchasing and contracting processes. This concludes my presentation, and staff recommends approval of the resolution revising the public contracting rules. I would be happy to answer any questions council may have.
I'll just say that we're very excited, the members are all very excited about the QBS changes. We lobbied hard as a group from the metro area around this, so excited to see it and excited to see it coming into our own rules. Council have questions? No questions. Is there a motion?
I move to approve resolution.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. So record, please read the name and title of the resolution.
Consider about Resolution 20-01, a resolution amending the city's public contracting rules.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I'll see that the resolution number 20-01 is adopted unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to thank Christine for the matrix you did, the crosswalk. That was really helpful. I was like sort of scanned all the text, and when I got to that, it was a lot easier to follow. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, that did make the review a lot easier. All right. We are quite ahead of schedule. And the next item on the agenda is council goal discussion. Increasing police services and local option levy. City Manager Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Tonight, staff is asking for council guidance, and you have discussion time scheduled so that you have the ability to talk about approaches to achieve the council goal related to the local option levy and advise staff about your desired next steps. Throughout the last year, 2019, the City Council has been pursuing a goal that you set at the beginning of the year. The goal is stated as ensuring the city's financial stability and sustainability while providing mandated services. Seek ways to fund and increase services valued by the community. Specifically, you have a strategy that states an intention to pursue a local option levy or a bond in 2020, May of 2020. You'll recall that staff's recommendation during your council goal setting that this levy proposal, if you choose to pursue it, would be a proposal that you identify early, that it would be clearly defined, focused on a supportable city service, and cost less to the taxpayer than the proposed 2018 levy. The levy is just a means of funding means to reach an end, and the end that you're seeking is the priority police services that are valued by the community. So you've identified that increasing police patrol services and specifically staff to cover our police patrol districts and reduce response times is a high priority and a service valued by the community. And at your meeting last month on December 17th, the question was raised whether there were other ways that you might achieve this goal with other funding sources besides the local option levy. So in response to your discussion last month about approaches to increase those services, we've compiled additional information for your discussion, and there's a matrix that's attached. This is just a preliminary exploration of other funding sources besides a levy that other cities in Oregon have employed to fund local government services. The list truly is just a starting point to aid in what you want to have in terms of a discussion about your means to reach this end. Let's see, and if you were to give guidance about some other direction than the path that we've been on, we need to be doing other research and exploring those options as you so direct. Staff are here tonight to talk about those options. I won't spend time going over the table. I just wanted to make sure that you had them to spur your thinking and discussion. Alternatively, you could stay on the path you're on and continue to pursue a local option levy in May of 2020. Our staff have continued to communicate as though we'd be pursuing your council goal and going after a levy in 2020, and we'll continue to do that until council directs otherwise. So we're looking for your guidance tonight about whether there's consensus. As I mentioned, I'm not going to spend time going over the alternatives, but we have those arrayed for you just to get your discussion going. If you were to choose to make a referral decision on a local option levy, you have until mid-February to do that. If that was the path that you decided to go on, your next step in that direction would be to direct us to begin to prepare a ballot title. So I look forward to hearing from you about it sounds like you want to have a fairly wide-ranging discussion about, what's the best means to reach this end that is your high priority.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the diligence that was done at our request, and I think it's due diligence that we need to do or needed to do as a council to make the most informed decisions, so thank you. Who would like to start? Council President Goodhouse?
Well, starting with what we said at the last meeting, I think we put a path forward for doing a local option levy and telling the public that that's what we're planning on doing. And my plan is to keep going forward. I think that we've, as a city and a council, we've said that's what we're going to go forward with. But I think what we need to focus on between now and then is that no matter what, we need to fix the funding problem in the police department. Keep that the message. The levy is what we need to look at right now, but no matter what, there needs to be a fix done because it's getting to be a direct problem in the police department and something we need to take care of. So I think that we move forward with that, but make sure people know that we need to fix it.
I would say even more strongly, we will fix it. Councilor Newton, you want to?
Well, as I've said many times, this is the thing that I think about all the time. So I really do appreciate the work that you all did on the funding sources. It really kind of helped with my thinking. And I went back through all the council goals and the performance audit and the chief's monthly dashboard that she provides and the strategic plan, and really want to make sure that the public understands that this is a priority for us, that we need to address this, and we will address it. The city manager's budget instructions that we looked at last week talk about our service level reserve, I think we call it, which is really important, and that supports our strategic plan, goal number 4, to fund key services while also funding the vision. And so I also would submit, though, that the concern I have is when I started here in 1980, we still did vacation checks. The police did vacation checks. We can't do that anymore. The type of calls that our police get are changing. I know the last few months, the chief has pointed out a lot of different types of crime have gone down. People do feel safe here. They do support our police and think the world of our police. We have professional, dedicated officers, but but I'm concerned about the types of calls they're spending more time on, which are increasing, and very concerned that they have the resources they need. Again, I would put our officers against any, but I want to make sure they're supported. And so anything we can do to support that, I feel like, to a certain degree, adding officers in this kind of a situation really isn't adding new services. I would submit, because these calls are taking longer, we don't have the resources to spread out throughout the community that we once did. So to a certain extent, we're not increasing, or trying to keep up with the changing police work. And so I see the levy as a tool. I think it's, in looking at all of them, I mean, I think it's one that we should continue to go forward on. But I also think that we need to make sure that the community is clear that we will address this. We are going to, this is a priority. I'm hoping that between now and when we get this addressed, when the election is held, that's the direction we go. That will make this a priority for the council to get this addressed so that we can focus on it. I'd also be interested in council's thoughts on the city manager did a good job in her budget instructions talking about the direction she's given staff on funding, and we're looking at holding the line except for, I forget exactly how she put it, but one-time costs or things like that aren't ongoing costs. I would wonder if there's an investment we can make, maybe in training or something initially for the police that would maybe bring our current officers up to speed in that de-escalation training. It wouldn't necessarily be an ongoing cost, but a commitment we could make initially to try to address this, because I think we need to be all hands on deck and try to figure out the best way to move forward. So those are my initial thoughts. I'm rambling.
Okay.
So.
Can I ask a question? What's the vacation check?
Well, our officers, you could call the police department and ask the police, tell the police department that you were going to be gone for 2 weeks, and could they please drive by your house and check?
Oh. And then go look at it.
Go jiggle the hand.
Councilor Anderson.
I still think the most equitable way to pay for this police service is by a local option levy, as opposed to gross receipts tax, food beverage tax, payroll income tax, business license tax, etc. I think we need to give the voters another shot at it. We had some disappointing poll results, but I still feel positive that the police and the safety of this town is too important to overcome, and we've really come in with a bare bones approach. So I think it's back to the voters and see what they think. If for some reason that is declared, we have some options that are disposable.
Councilor Lube.
Thank you. I listened to the council meeting from 3 weeks ago now, I think it was, and so I was able to listen to a lot of the discussion and opinions that were had. And I think I approached it with, the survey results were disheartening. I'm comfortable saying each of the council members really support the police and want to ensure that our community continues to be a safe environment, and are worried about our police force because of the types of calls that they're having and the back-to-back calls. And our police officers are human beings. I really stress out at my job. Sometimes I'm afraid to be able to go out for a walk for however long that I need to have it, and our police officers don't have that. And their risk in the situations that they're dealing with are so much more elevated than mine. I commit on a daily basis for everything that they manage and they deal with, and I don't have the time to go back to the office and to do the reports. And so I'm disheartened because I think all of the city staff and the police have done a wonderful job, as well as the council over the last year, trying to do as much information and outreach as possible. And so to come back just with these survey results of reporting thinking the city and thinking the police are great but not wanting to pay for it. It's this frustrating situation to find ourselves in. And so I think, taking a step back and knowing that we want to solve this problem, and what is the best way to solve this problem? Because I think it's a communication issue, much like the mayor said during the last meeting. When you sit down and have conversations with people to be able to explain what's going on, they become very supportive. But it's not something that we can really quickly put out in a couple of social media posts. And it's very difficult for all of us to continue to reach out to everyone on an individual basis, and it has to be in a situation where we can reach them. And a lot of that has been different community events, and not everybody goes to those. So I'm just repeating a lot of, I think, what many of you said before, but I'm dedicated to finding a way to fix this problem and to continue to make this community safe and support our police department. I struggle with, is delivery the best solution? Is putting the letter out as a communication tool to continue to talk to the community the best way to do it? And I struggle if it doesn't pass, are other solutions? Because I have concerns, and I would have some serious issues with going out and the letter not passing, and then us looking at some sort of a public safety fee. And it would be asking the public to say, please support this, and not support it, and then do some sort of fee. It doesn't feel right when the public has told us no. And so I struggle with what happens if. And I really hope that we're able to make the communication and to get it passed. But what happens based on the survey results, if we don't? And so I struggle with that. I struggle with what is the best solution for this.
If we didn't have the kind of information gap, I guess, the part of what feeds into my thinking about that is that even people who are very concerned about property taxes and taxes in general, when you sit down and go through a 15 or 20-minute conversation with them about this specific topic, they thank you, they say, wow, I had no idea, and are then supportive of it. And so that makes me think, in part, that part of our elected officials is because we're spending a bunch of time that on behalf of the 54,000 people that live in the city of Tigard, because they don't have the time to do that. And so I do struggle with that balance of we have put in the time, we have put in a bunch of time trying to communicate, and what we've learned is that it's a very long conversation to get people to the point where they understand, and that's in this current day and age with people's attention spans and social media, that's just, it's questionably practical. So I understand that concern, but I also think at some point we've got to make the right decisions for our community with all the trust that the public's given us to make the best decisions on their behalf.
Mr. Rowland, really quick, I think in thinking about this, that's why I appreciate what you're saying, Councilor, but I think it's important now that we shift a little and communicate to the public that this is our priority, and we're going to solve it one way or another, so they understand that we're going out to them with this option, but they've elected us, and if this isn't the option that seems to fit, we're going to find another way to fund it, because I was running a performance audit, and we got a lot of kudos in that, and one of the comments was, overall, the city is providing high levels of customer service to the public and generally providing services at a level higher than might be expected with current resource allocations. And the heaviest financial lift in these recommendations is that 8 police officers. So I think we can use our performance audit as a communication tool as well to help people understand that, again, we're resource constrained, this is a high priority, and do what we can to demonstrate that they've elected us, we're going to address this, here's a tool, but there are other tools. And so I hear what you're saying, but in thinking about this since our discussion in December, I thought we've just got to be really, really clear with the public that this is our high priority right now. This is our top priority. And if that means some other things get put off a little, so be it.
Council President Goodhouse.
And I agree with Councilor Miller that from now to limit time, and another thing is police, one of the things I like about campaigns, though, is it puts a spotlight on the issue. So we're talking about it, but then it becomes real. People focus on it more, and then we start having more conversations about it. So that's really my hope, and being optimistic about it, is that with the spotlight on it, it'll give us more of an ability to communication. I'm still optimistic with the levels that bump up. It's just a little bit of an education question on the poll survey. To see that to me seems, if we get more message out there, more of the communication, then we can, I think, sway people and have people, and if anything, people realized they had a vote in it, whether or not, what direction it came out with. And we still haven't got the data yet, but the wonder for the polls, how many people, from the first survey to the second survey, where duplicates or not?
DHM will be delivering a detailed report on January 9th, so it'll include an answer to that question. We don't have that information yet.
So I hear some consensus on moving forward with the levy. I think I'm reading the room accurately there, or the council room at least. I think if we're doing that, realizing that we've got basically 4 or 5 weeks to finalize ballot title language, correct? That means we need to make some decisions, and I think provide direction to staff. So I want to take a stab at that. So I'm going to propose, for the sake of discussion, that we move forward with 29 cents per thousand for 8 officers for patrol and 1 additional school resource officer, which was also supported in the performance audit. And that we don't separate and focus out on homeless outreach, as much as I would like to keep that in. I question whether that makes things more complicated and also doesn't focus on our core mission of patrol response. So I'm going to throw that out as a proposal.
The de-escalation training?
That needs to be done whether it's in the levy or not, to be honest. I mean, that's a great way to fund it, but it's just not just not done. You can amend that to my proposal if you want, but I think it needs to be done anyway.
With the 29 cents, if I understand correctly, so 33 would have been full support staff, 25 would have been allowance, that would be would you recommend a portion of the support staff by the way, or no?
Well, I was hoping that decreasing it from 10 to 9 would, and keeping it at 29 would fully fund the support staff, or be close enough for government work, as some people say.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Eden.
I used to work here, and I would really have a hard time, we could go to 6 officers, whatever, but I would really have a hard time something in that doesn't fully fund support staff. You just, if it has to be fewer officers, I'd be willing to consider that, but I just don't think it's prudent if we're going to go out to not fully fund the cost.
Mr. Fritz, can you figure out what that number is with 9, like what the cents per thousand is for 9 officers? With support staff?
And also, I think it would be, I would be willing to fund officers 6, 8, whatever, and let the chief decide how she is going to administer those resources, or I'm not thinking of the word, but, I'm not sure about deploy. Good, yeah, thank you. I'm not sure about the SRO at this point, because it wasn't a high priority in the performance audit, was it?
I don't know if it was a high priority. It was mentioned in the performance audit, and one thing I've noticed is the school district seems to pass every single thing they try to pass, so they really care about the school resource officers, I know that.
Okay.
We certainly can get the chief's opinion as well, but we let's get the rest of the council, Chief McCoppell, Lisa, you guys can all bring chairs up.
Come on down.
Be peppered with questions. Has everybody gotten the ball rolling?
I was just going to say, and I've said this before, we were talking about the different amounts. It's easier this in the past, and so I don't know about, but we can have the bare bones and we can figure out the extras later. But kind of like the chief said, give me the officers, we'll figure out the other part later. I think it's easier to get a safety committee passed initially in what we just need for the officers, and that's what we need is more officers. So I think maybe we can scale it down, make sure it's officers only, and figure out the rest. That's my direction.
Okay, I have heard you on that for sure. I think the rest of the council has. What is the total do of the number?
My recommendation would be to come back at one of the next meetings to give you what a fully supported 9-officer package would look like. We haven't costed out a school resource officer the way we costed out the homeless outreach. And so it is something that we could come back. We could also come back with, if it's more of a direction of 29 cents, what and 9 officers, what that would get. So we can take it from either side, and we can take it from both sides.
The council wants to, because I'm just proposing, but that doesn't really have how it makes it.
Definitely. From the perspective of going to 9 officers, or that is a loaded question. As I always said, and I will remain on that stance, you know, our youth are important. That's why we keep the SROs. But the pull for other services has required us to pull back. And, you know, because if you have 4 school resource officers at these schools and only 3 officers handling the entire part of the city, there's an equity issue there as far as even workload distribution. You know, as the performance audit said, there was a recommendation as the schools are growing to add 1 more SRO. I'm not opposed to looking at that again, especially in this packet. But first and foremost, you've heard me say, is we need the officers on the streets. Should we be fortunate to pass and add that SRO would have to be, just like I would on homeless outreach, the last to on board. We need the officers trained, hired, trained, and deployable out in patrol first. That is the priority. And then everything else can go after that.
Thank you.
Council President Goodhouse. The chief of the department, I think that the homeless issue, and it's something that addresses a lot of issue. I think it addresses resources and the officers. And I was because if you look at the 2 homeless officers, the 8 officers in the homeless row, and nothing else, I think it's still the power of 21 would be interesting. So if you're going to come up with numbers, when I say nothing else, you know, a lot of the support stuff, there's a skill or whatever it looks like, but we still have some left to our own sets. I just don't think the math works out because we've already done that math.
Just for the ease of conversation, I'd like to now expect staff to be doing the math that you're talking about all time for tonight, but we have time set aside on next week's agenda so that it would give us adequate time if we have some clarity. Yes, I just think it was easier for that to not all happen here now.
Also, the math under pressure doesn't always work out. Okay, so let's be clear about what we're really asking for. I think this is what we're trying to figure out. Now we're trying to figure out what that
what does 29 cents get us fully loaded? And then we look at the 8 to 10, that might be 32 or whatever. So that's something we could consider. What did 29 cents get us with all the support? And then what were you saying, Mr. Mayor, 8 to 10?
Because somebody proposed the SRO plus the 2 outreach officers and 8 for patrol. I think we probably just got the best of the flexible model where we know how much each individual unit of stuff costs, both fully, well, actually doesn't really has to be fully loaded, because I don't think there's a purpose in building fully loaded things back from what I'm hearing.
And if I may just answer a little bit more on the question of de-escalation training. And Mayor, as you spoke, yes, it is a priority, and we try and send a couple officers. We were, at the pace of which we were sending officers to include just 7 officers in the last 5 years, obviously that's not timely. When these openings come, because again, because we're on minimum staffing, it requires a backfill, and those are 40-hour week. That's why the cost even for the training is a little bit high, because that takes in all the overtime. So we will, with or without a levy, we will continue to get our officers trained, with patrol being the priority. The levy and having it in the levy package just allowed us to get everybody done at within a year, as opposed to nickel and dime.
We should keep going. I think that's really critical. I think it's really have some of the right, the whole force trained properly with 7 officers and 8 without the training.
I agree. I think that's an ideal scenario. If we can feasibly do it, that is a responsible thing to do.
Okay. So actually, we could the math team is listening to that too. Council President Ross? Perfect package with the others that pass. So I want to make sure that we're looking at something that can pass. So we're something that's more 20 cents. We don't support all of it. We're just take it out and look at something that's going to fall that way. It's going to flip the numbers around and appease all the people. Something's going to look at the picture of what people really want. We get the, that's what we do after we do the rules outreach, we do the de-escalation. The support staff doesn't see it. We're trying from a different source within the city, but it's all fun. It's not past the nothing. It's hate for us to focus so much and most package out there that's too much and doesn't pass as most, as opposed to putting a schedule that at least gets it started. If there is no indication from the survey results that the amount mattered that much to people, I guess we're willing to give that consideration, but what we figure out, I think from the survey work, is that there's like no price has to fill here at all. I mean, it's percents of dollars or anything, so it was virtually a change from 46 cents. And we'll have to get the Councilor's opinion on that. Okay. Councilor Turney?
House office situation. I think that what Councilor Bidwell's proposed of cutting down officers to try to have both is important, but I also think it's important that officers receive de-escalation training as well. And so I agree with what Mayor Sanders said about I'd rather have 7 officers that have receive de-escalation training than both of those, because I think it's important that they're able to de-escalate situations as peacefully as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Chief, I have a question. So finally the lights going on. When we say we're going to include the de-escalation training, for example, in the budget, upcoming budget, that doesn't really help you because you don't have the officers. I mean, you can't really send them. You're covering the officers and the training budget. Is that what you're saying?
There are 2 ways to approach it. The $96,000 that came out of this was actually hosting the training. The training out there is free, and you only get a couple of spots, and that's what we've done, gradually gotten a couple of spots. And where the cost comes is backfilling it on overtime to allow the officer to unplug. So if we put it in the budget, we would be asking for an increase in the budget for whether you put in the training dollars or it's really overtime to allow them to go.
Right.
But as is now, Washington County, Clackamas County, they host that training and they will put it on periodically. The model that we gave you would have allowed us to host it, bring in the trainer, so that costs $10,000 for the trainer, and then unplug a larger group, and then have to fill those in back time. So it's more rapid, it's a little bit more costly because you're onboarding and hosting it, but that's how it would, that's where the costing comes.
So you're saying you could, if we put some funding in the upcoming budget, you could make some progress?
Yeah, and we are. I mean, we're yes.
What Councilor Owens really going to ask is, if we put on a budget, could you get everybody through it along with your current staffing?
That's my question, thank you.
I would be hesitant to say that with a lot of confidence because we're on minimum staffings every day. And so if you, that's just running in overtime to fill that for these unexpected injuries, illnesses, or other things. And then on top of that, you put in a 40-hour training, and that training is generally, whether you do it in an entire week, I would be hesitant to say absolutely we would do that, because given our current staffing as we are, it would be
enough to...
Exactly. I'm asking you, and you talked about burnout and exhaustion. I would be concerned about that. That would be a little bit ambitious as we are structured right now.
3 hours under that scheme?
We'll want a few more officers, but my goal would still be within that 18 months to get, because again, I would focus on patrol first and detectives and others after that.
Council President Gibbons?
I think for communication, kind of what Councilor Trahan was saying is that it's kind of a picture we're talking about. I think the public gets it. We're doing the patrol officers, we're doing homeless outreach, we're doing this, we're doing de-escalation as part of communication. We're doing the bets for the next 4 months. And so if we could do that, the reason why I think we're past it, budget, they don't say we're going to do that with our officers, they realize that, but I think it's still that package. It's still doing for the citizens, whatever it takes to be an officer. It's not just, you just go out there and go in the car. So I think that if that outcome will be there, it really kind of falls back to if something doesn't happen, then they can look at throwing that training into a budget item or something like that. One thing is, I keep going back to communication and strategy. This is to keep it heavy.
And if the budget doesn't pass, then the future budgets might no longer solve it. The de-escalation training specifically. Okay.
If there's any component of training that would be helpful now, maybe it's not 92, but maybe there's something in the upcoming fiscal year that would be helpful. I mean, I just look at your dashboards every so if there is something that would be helpful, maybe it's a lower dollar amount, there's a different plan to kind of get things moving a little more quickly. It's up to you, but thank you.
Other council thoughts? Supervisor Ryan, you look like you wanted to add some input?
Not input so much as, I was going to make an attempt at summarizing what I had heard. It sounds to me like the original proposal, Mr. Mayor, that you made, which was a levy package of 29 cents with 8 officers and a school resource officer, is the package that you'd like costed. I haven't heard the council vary off of that, and to both be able to answer the question, what is possible to be funded with 29 cents per thousand AD, and also, is it possible to fund a package of 8 officers plus 1 school resource officer?
With support staff?
With the fully funded support staff. So that's what I hear that you're landing on.
I've heard a few people ask, well, can we get all that plus the 2 homeless outreach officers? But I think that's an obvious, at least it's an obvious no at 29 cents, because we don't know that costs more than that.
But we can confirm that.
I think we have a couple ABC options. Do we look at the one, that's where the 8 officers? Do we look at also with the 2 homeless, and that could look at a couple different package options and see what sense those are. We can kind of, then in the next meeting, and we have a better understanding. If we throw this out, we're saying, hey, let's SRO, 8 officers, 2 homeless, and the de-escalation and support staff, and that's 40 cents, then we know that's way out of the realm, so. I'm just picking a number.
Put the table together that had like the various things and the cost per thousand. I'm thinking that's a new table that includes the de-escalation training, 8 officers, 1 SRO, and it's all translated in the per thousand, cents per thousand.
Yeah, with the 2 homeless officers and with the support staff.
So everything's broken out and we can pick and choose.
Yeah, so we have kind of a la carte menu we can look at and see.
So if you saw that at your next meeting, that would give you a chance to discuss it further and zero in on a proposal.
Again, attached to the 29 cents, and the purest sense, 8 officers, and the chief deploys them how the chief wants to deploy them. She might use them on homeless. When we message, we talk about some of the things officers might be doing, but if we have 8 officers and the de-escalation training, the SRO, let's cost that separately, but yeah, so, but I'm not as wedded to the 29 cents. I would be fine looking at 29 cents as long as the number that we come up with, might be fewer officers, is fully funded, and their support staff.
I would point out the 29 cents, but point out that just kind of psychology, anything under $100 for the average assessed 1,000 is kind of would be a good realm to stay under.
And I know that number is even under 30, that number's over 33 cents.
Yeah.
At 33 cents, wasn't it $92?
It was around there, yes.
If I recall. Okay. I would like the council to be prepared, and the staff's been prepared, but I'd like the council to be prepared with that information to be ready to make a final decision next week, such that we can move towards writing ballot title language. Is that reasonable? Does everybody think they can do that? And should, I guess I would ask, should we, during the conversation we're having now, does it make sense to start that work? Yes?
Yes, I think so. I think any input council can provide on the ballot title would be helpful to staff.
Okay, so time to start that work too.
And we've received some from you already, so, I mean, I think we've begun, but that guidance could come next week and be helpful.
Okay. So
the most important message to send it to the community is that this is a priority and we will address it, and we will figure out a way to address this issue. And so you're going to be hearing me at council meetings in the future going, what does this have to do with police? How does it affect the general fund? So sorry, but I'm going to be a broken record.
Well, Councilor Newton, to your point, we, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, but we have an obligation to the community to keep the community safe, and we've got 5 elected officials here telling you as a community that we need to do this to keep you safe, and we're going to figure out how to do it.
Another thing I would want to say, since we're on cable television, is nothing to take away from the fabulous police department we have. They do amazing work. I've gone on ride-alongs, but I want to make sure they get the support they need for this changing landscape they're working in. And so we're fortunate to have each and every one of them, but they deserve our support.
Other comments or direction? Thank you all very much for coming up on no planned notice. We have no agenda items. There's no executive session scheduled. City Manager Ryan, is there an administrative report tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, welcome to a new feature on your Council agenda called the Administrative Report. Every week during study session, you have been seeing an item on a sheet when you're meeting in study session called administrative items. Those were items that we wanted to remind you about upcoming meetings, the timing for things, stuff that's in the planning, in the works that relates to council. The purpose of this report is for me to give you an update about things that are underway on the administration side of Tigard city government. And we thought it would be a good opportunity for you to both be able to ask questions about things that you're hearing about programs that are underway, or for me to be able to update you about news and happenings and programmatic changes that are going on. And so for this week, and this will replace your administrative items that you would usually see at those other meetings. And so for this week, I only have 2 items just to get us started for the year. One is that, and actually it looks a lot like the administrative items that you used to consider. The council's been asked to, the city's been asked to vote on the Greater Portland Inc. representative for the small cities, the representative for small cities who will serve for Greater Portland Inc. And so the mayor asked that we check in with the council about who the voting member from the Tigard City Council would be to cast that ballot. Historically, it's been the mayor, so I wanted to just clarify with all of you that that meets with your approval. Okay. Okay, we'll make that happen. The other item for administrative report that I wanted to just let you know about, and you'll be seeing in your council newsletter, is our photo enforcement program is launching this week in the warning period. So beginning on the 8th, the intersection of 99W and Hall will begin the warning period, and then the 2 other intersections, 72nd and Durham, will come later in the month. So we'll be inside the 30-day warning period, and that means that the citations and the rest of the program will get going next month.
So does that mean midnight tonight?
That's a good question.
So if I stop, if I start the first tonight?
Your rain divider?
I'm serious about, does it start like at midnight or tomorrow morning or?
They go through a lightning placard.
It's dependent upon the contract.
Okay.
We've been working overtime to get the last pieces. As many of our city employees are saying, well, we don't see the camera box yet. And all of the wiring and the conduit is underground. It's just.
Gotcha.
And they're
Okay.
planning on overtime to fill that. So I would just say relatively safe that tomorrow, sometime on the 8th.
And I just got a late breaking news that we might have a rain delay that could interfere with that. So much for my administrative report.
All right.
I wanted to get started making this report part of your regular agenda. So
It's welcome.
that's all I have for a report for tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Is there a motion for adjournment? Move to adjourn. I'll second. It's been moved and second. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.